everybody. Happy Friday. And we have another fantastic stream. So many good stories to discuss. This Star Wars one came in at the last minute. And we have, as I said, a nice little group here. And I've lots of pictures uploaded per usual. I think this works well on the stream with the chapter times and the images. I think it makes it a little bit more engaging. You guys are so sweet. It's so nice to see everybody. Thank you. You guys are very, very kind. I was at the hair salon yesterday. That's where I was all day yesterday. I was at the hair salon. So I'm glad you guys think that it was time well spent. All right. So as always, try to keep your comments and questions to the story at hand. And then I'll open up each section to questions and comments, at the end of each section. And then at the very end of the stream, as always, there's the Ask Me Anything portion of the live. Okay, all right, so here we go. All right, I uploaded all these images. Hey, Paul, thank you. Story number 1. Boop. Oh, look at that. All right, so here are the chapter times. Thank you, Blair. All right, so the Alien and Apes sequel has been confirmed. Alien, the deal isn't, well, let me tell you where this came from. This came from an interview yesterday that the Hollywood Reporter published with this gentleman, Steve Asbell, who's in charge of Fox. He runs Fox for Disney now. And so they asked him a whole bunch of questions, and he spilled the tea, and he talked about what was percolating over at Fox. And the reason it got a lot of attention is that he confirmed an Apes sequel for, I believe, 2027. And then he said that Alien Romulus was going to get a sequel. He wasn't sure when. They were still closing the deals, but that they were moving forward with that. So, oh, darn it, I did forget an image. Oh, whatever. All right, so, but I think that, that was very interesting, even though he talked about a lot of other sequels, as you can see, and we'll discuss in a moment. I think it was interesting to see that Alien and Apes got sequels confirmed, considering that their box office, as we've been discussing on Movie Math, was not really where you totally wanted it to be. And we had lots of spirited discussions about that, on Movie Math and on the Twitters. So let's talk about that. Why would they confirm a sequel, even though, the films did not perform potentially as you would like? Well, obviously, I think Alien Romulus and Apes did very well on digital. I think we saw it in the top 10 for a very long time. Alien Romulus has just hit digital, and it's doing well. And I think both will do exceptionally well on streaming. Also, Bob Iger has very much a sequel franchise directive at the studio. Not only because they really focus and, that's where their bread and butter is on sequels, but that they're able to use it across the Disney empire. For instance, when these movies come out, they talked about the fact that their streaming services do very well with the older films. I am my fact. That's right, Mr. Andrews. You want to keep that IP alive. I myself, after seeing Alien Romulus, liked it so much. I liked being in the world of Alien so much, even though I'd recently rewatched the first 2 Alien movies. I did go onto Hulu, just because I prefer that interface for non-Disney, specific content. And I rewatched Prometheus, and I even rewatched Alien Covenant, which was just as bad as I remembered. Sorry. So it was distracting me. So, that's fantastic. And I remember that when Apes came out, people were watching a lot of the Apes movies as well. I didn't quite go back down Apes memory lane, but a lot of other people did. And also, of course, they have an Alien television show coming out next year, Alien Earth, that Noah Hawley is doing. So you don't want to hurt that show by being like, oh, but we're not making a sequel because the IP is in so much trouble. So, of course, you're going to want to say there's a sequel coming. Although if Fede Alvarez is making a deal, we'll talk about that, then it most likely is. But yeah, I think it's all about franchises over there at Disney. Look at this headline. We're making another, they said, oh, we have a secret Predator movie that's also coming out. One on streaming, one in theaters. We have that Alien sequel, Speed 3. everyone's like, don't make Speed 3. And then also, they even say down here, they're going to make a prequel to Master and Commander. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. Did I ever tell you my Master and Commander story? I'll tell it very quickly. Maybe I shouldn't. No, okay, but I really hate that movie. I know some people like Master and Commander. It was one of the worst movies I ever saw, and I was really looking forward to it. Didn't do particularly well at the box office, didn't win a lot of awards. So the fact that they think they can turn Master and Commander into an IP is pretty amazing. Shogun Orta says, but does Alien Romulus have enough meat on the bones for a sequel? Well, that's an interesting question. Let's talk about that. All right, so let's look at the box office to date. Okay, so let me move my arrow. All right, I'll be back. All right, so here's the box office to date. This is 2024 worldwide box office. You can see there's a significant drop after Dune. From 714, it drops almost, almost $150 million. So these movies are all really, really strong. Now here, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes just made it into the top 10, but it won't be in here by the end of the year. It won't be in here by the end of 2024. It did very well. It did actually better domestic. It's one of, as you can see, 56% of its box office is domestic. Or is that domestic percent? Is overseas. So that's unusual. That's very good. But it's low. We'll talk about them within the specific sequels. But Alien Romulus, it got up there. It got to 350. You know, by the end, I was saying 3 to 350, and it got to the high end of that projection. But look, it did so much better overseas. Look at the difference there. 70% of its box office came from overseas. Only 30. It just barely made it to the century mark, which is very interesting. But that's okay. Many a franchise has been saved by overseas box office, largely the Fast and Furious movies. So you can see these aren't particularly strong, but I think the Alien and the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes IP is so strong on its own and have both been around for decades that, you know, Disney ain't going to be the one to kill them. All right, so I think that maybe is one of the reasons that they are moving forward with the sequels anyway. All right, so let's first talk about a potential Apes sequel. I really liked this movie as well. I liked both of these movies, by the way. I thought both these movies were strong. They're not doing an Apes and Aliens movie, and in fact, this guy said they aren't going to do an Alien Predator crossover again. I think they're trying to do more highbrow stuff. Yeah, I agree virtually. Well, 400 million for Apes, that's what Apes got, not Romulus. 400 million, that's okay. Let's look at it in the context of the franchise. All right, so I liked this movie. It had a very big cliffhanger ending. No spoilers if people haven't seen it, please. Thank you very much. But it's a solid film. I thought it was better than I would have ever anticipated it to be, and I actually recommended it. But I mean, obviously, Wes Ball, let's see if he continues to go over to Zelda. I think that Zelda package is really bad with Ari Avid producing and Wes Ball directing. I mean, I don't love that package for Zelda. I would keep Wes Ball on Apes, to be honest with you. But I liked these characters, and I'd be interested to see where things went from the end of the story. Now, Apes, you can see, it got to 400, but nowhere near the 710 of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But, you know, that was the sequel. Even the original Rise of the Planet of the Apes with Andy Serkis got almost another 100 million. But, you know, maybe they're hoping for a similar sequel blow-up. Maybe that's what they're hoping here. Again, I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to be the studio head who killed these IP. So maybe that alone is enough of a reason to greenlight sequels. But I would do significant changes. I'd be like, we got to get more people to go and see this movie. All right, now let's talk the big one, obviously, and that's Alien Romulus. All right, there's a lot to discuss here, as you can see, because there's actually quite a lot to work from. So this executive said, I agree that, Sophia, recognizable actors help. Even the first Planet of the Apes had Charlton Heston in it. So you need to have, I think name talent helps. You don't have to have all name talent, but I think some name talent is a good idea. That's something that Alien Romulus was missing as well, by the way. Although hopefully David Johnson is now a name. We're going to talk about him. Yeah, this is also Cosmic's a video game effect, which is interesting to me. So Alien Romulus. All right, so let's first look at its box office. So Alien Romulus got to 350. All right, that's not great. It's better than Alien Covenant, woohoo! But it's only 50 million away from Prometheus. So one of the things we discovered while we were covering the Alien Romulus box office was that Alien has never actually been a big performer. And I think what really saved the day for Fede Alvarez is that he made a very inexpensive movie. He made all of that for just 80 million. Very similar to how Gareth Edwards, got a lot of credit for The Creator, even though that did not do well. But it was so inexpensive that it ended up getting him the next Jurassic Park movie or Jurassic World movie. They were like, so inexpensive. We love it. At least it won't cost us very much. So yeah, I think Michael Rivera, Alien is not a horror movie. You guys are driving me crazy with this comparison. Nobody makes or shouldn't make an $80 million horror movie. Alien is a franchise movie. That is a different space. It might have horror elements. It might be a horror franchise, but it does not have the same situation as horror movies. Horror movies are popular in Hollywood because they cost normally 40 million or less to make. We're not going to make a poll, Vachuli, because I'm not going to poll you to see if you have an incorrect answer. How many of you are wrong? It's not a horror movie. Again, it might have horror elements, and I think Maisie might be on the right path with it being sci-fi horror, but The Conjuring, Nathan, that's different. The Conjuring is a horror movie because those are less expensive, and also because, they're specifically in the horror space. Again, a horror movie is a low-budget film that is, you guys are so freaking annoying sometimes. It's not a horror film. You can type it in the comments as much as you want, but it's not a horror film. It's a franchise film. It costs more money, and therefore it needs to perform at that level. That's just the way it is, okay? I think that a lot of, it's like you're giving the fan perspective of it. And so you're going to be like, oh, man, why is the thing not performing the way that I want it to? It just doesn't make any sense. The fact that you would put the Alien movies in the same category as The Omen and The Exorcist and The Conjuring and Scream is like ridiculous. All those other movies fit together. Alien does not fit there. It just doesn't fit. Again, it has gore, it has horror elements to it, but it is a franchise. And, if you continue to miscategorize it, you're not doing the franchise any favors. Don't move. Everybody always says, don't move the goalposts. And then you move the goalposts yourself. Okay. So it's really, I'm really sick and tired of this conversation. Okay. All right, but, it's getting a sequel, so it's fine. But it's not. Nobody makes a $80 million horror movie unless they're an absolute moron. Okay. I mean, look at these budgets. It just is ridiculous. All right, so let's see here. Let's go back to positive interaction. All right, so they're making the sequel. Now let's talk about what we want. They're making it. It no longer matters what the box office is, and they're bringing back Fede Alvarez. So that's great. Seattle Law Nerd says Alien 1 was a horror movie. That's an interesting question. I would argue, I think the sci-fi element dramatically changes it and puts it into the franchise category even then, to be honest with you. It would be like saying the Jurassic Park movies are horror movies. That's what I would say it's similar to. And I think Aliens should be operating in the similar space. What are the xenomorphs but space dinosaurs to a degree? So I think you would have to then argue that Jurassic Park was a horror franchise, because it also has murders and gore and stuff like that. And that's not a horror franchise. Okay, so I tweeted, everybody wants Andy and David. I said it when I reviewed the movie. I said when I wanted to talk about what they were going forward. The Terminator is another good example. Terminator, you also wouldn't categorize Terminator as a horror movie. Even though it did have similar beginnings. Any movie starting out, it's important to keep that budget low. So yeah, I think that David was the best part of the Ridley Scott more recent Alien films. I would love to see Andy versus David. I think that would be very exciting. And it's true, I do have a soft spot for AI in the Alien franchise, even though I'm very nervous about what's happening with AI in real life. But yeah, I would like to see these two guys. I think this would just really be phenomenal. And I think David still, I just watched the trailer for the upcoming Michael Fassbender show. It looked a little boring. I was almost going to ask for screeners, and then I watched the trailer and I was like, this is too slow. I was like, Clooney going cerebral yet again when he should have gone action. But I think that, Michael Fassbender would come back and it would be beneficial to and he's a name, especially as this character, and I think it would be beneficial to the sequel. That's right, George. They could even bring back Winona Ryder. I'd be into it. Fede Alvarez, they said they are making a deal for him to come back. Oh, Basil, I'm so glad you got a membership. That makes me very happy. But let's talk about something else that I think is really important, which many people brought up, the video game. When the movie came out, a lot of people talked about the video game. This is a video game that came out a couple of years ago, Alien Isolation. I'd never heard of it because, I'm not a gamer. But when this movie came out, a lot of people said, oh my gosh, this looks a lot like Alien Isolation. And in fact, it was revealed that Fede Alvarez played Alien Isolation, and that was not only his inspiration for trying to make an Alien movie, but for the film itself. That does look like Ella Purnell. That's good. That's an interesting choice. So Alien Isolation was not a huge game, but you're right, Lone Wolf Media, because of this, because Alien Romulus has, I think, excited the fandom again, even if that box office isn't incredible. So they are making a sequel to Alien Isolation, probably because it would help the sequel that Fede Alvarez wants to make. Now, to me, outside of Hollywood, one of the most interesting things, thank you, John Kal-El, one of the most interesting things about Alien Isolation was the way the game worked. I saw a couple of people remembering playing it, and they said that what was so cool about it was that Alien Isolation figured out your strategy as a gamer, as a player. And so as the xenomorph hunted for you, because of the AI back then, I wonder what it would be capable of today, that it could find you and it would learn how you played. It learned based on your interactions. And that sounded actually pretty intriguing to me. I'm like, boo AI, but if you could use AI in that regard, well, then that's one of the things where I'm like, although I don't know if I want to teach AI to outsmart a human, I'd be like, oh, that was a great game. Too bad it destroyed society. But I think that's pretty cool. So I think that, yet again, actually, Alien Romulus, even though it's not a direct adaptation of that game, it's another backdoor situation where a popular video game blew up a Hollywood thing. So I think that's awesome. I think that's really, really cool. And I think that was the special sauce for Alien Romulus. And if I were the executives at Fox, I would say, ooh, Fede, that was a good idea. I want you to lean into Alien Isolation and that video game even more. That's what I would tell him. I'd be like, I think people loved that. It excited people about your movie. Keep doing it. Now, in that regard, the main character in Alien Isolation is Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda Ripley. Now, remember, what do you know? The Alien Romulus movie takes place in that space. I'm Lone Wolf Media. I'm glad you liked that game so much. But remember, Rain and Andy exist in the same space that Amanda would. So you could bring Amanda Ripley with maybe flashback scenes or dreams about her mother into the sequel. So I think while they are going to bring back Rain and Andy, I'd be like, get me Amanda Ripley. Get me a new Ripley. That's what I would want to do. And hey, if I could get it to be Ella Purnell, I would be very excited about that, particularly after the success of Fallout. So I think this is very strong. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially because Fede Alvarez loves the game, if I think it's very likely Amanda Ripley will show up in this sequel. Now, there's something else exciting I want to talk about before I open this up to your questions, and I hope we don't fight more about the horror thing. Let's just call it a draw. If you want to call, as a fan, if you want to call Alien a horror movie as a fan, that's fine, but then you better call Jurassic and Terminator horror movies as well. That's fine, but I'm really urging you to just make the realization that from a business perspective, that is incorrect. Okay. And I think sometimes that's where our disconnects comes from. You guys are approaching this stuff as fans, and I'm approaching it from a business perspective. And so, I think that's really, that's why we fight about it, All right. All right. So what's really exciting to me is that David Johnson, who plays Andy, already got a new role. Oh, I'm so excited about this. This is so exciting. Okay. So Coleman Domingo is going to direct a movie about the real-life torrid love affair between Kim Novak, who of course is from Hitchcock's Vertigo, and Sammy Davis Jr. This was a real thing that happened, and because of the time period, the studios pressured Kim Novak not to see him. So I think that's really going to be, and this is who they've cast. David Johnson is going to play Sammy Davis Jr., and Sydney Sweeney is going to play Kim Novak. That's incredible casting. That's really strong casting. That is a great choice. We've been talking about Sydney Sweeney and the kind of roles she should do. This is a great role for her. So I think, very, very strong. Very strong. And I think this is a great story to tell. I think it tells of a very specific time in Hollywood where things were changing, but we're not changing fast enough, unfortunately, for this couple, which is sad. It reminds me a little bit about Kim Basinger and Prince years later, who also had a relationship, which they ended up not pursuing, probably because they were discouraged from doing so for business reasons. I like to wear my business hat, but I'd never tell anybody not to do what their heart told them to do in a personal relationship. So I think that this sounds great. I think, and for David Johnson to get to play Sammy Davis Jr., that is just an incredible, incredible, incredible opportunity for him. He couldn't have asked for a better way to spend his alien capital. That to me is very exciting. I don't know if this is going to be something that will do particularly well in theaters. Maybe this sounds a little bit more to me like a streaming movie, but I'm still extremely excited about it. This was almost the third story for the day if the Star Wars story hadn't broken. That's how excited I am for this. Remember, he was he was a member of the Rat Pack, right? Was Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. I think this is an incredible opportunity, and I'm very happy for Coleman Domingo. I saw some of you pointing that out, that he's bringing this story, for people to see. Again, I could not be more excited about this property. Not only because I think it's a great story that needs to be told, and I'm excited for that, and I think the casting is strong. But I'm particularly excited for David Johnson's glow up. Because, Sydney Sweeney is already, everybody knows who Sydney Sweeney is, but this is really going to cement David Johnson in Hollywood, along with the sequel. Thank you, Emilio. Along with the sequel for Alien, Romulus, this is great for him. I'm so happy for him. Sometimes I do fan out a little bit, and I'm fanning out for David Johnson. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments about this story before we move on to the next one? I'm so excited about this. Tenerife says, do you think we'll get more of the xenomorphs that were shown at the end of Alien Romulus? I sure hope so. I would be upset if they backed away from that, although a lot of people hated it. A lot of people thought it was stupid, but I liked it. I was like, again, during my screening, an audience member said, what the hell is that? And it was fantastic. What a great time we had. Blair Wraith, I don't have a VHS player. I guess it would be fun to own it, but I'm not a collector. As I told you, years ago, I had a mold problem, and I lost all of my collectibles, and so I just stopped collecting because of that. I used to be a big collector. Oliver says, horror or not, the Alien series is devolving into a generic slasher sci-fi franchise right before my eyes. What, Oliver? You didn't like Alien Romulus? Look, I might have been disparaging about its box office performance, but I thought it was a phenomenal film. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, actually. Thanks, Bubbles. It's always so nice to see you. Hey, Ben 10, don't worry about being late. Sion says, will we ever see Disney integrate these IPs into their parks? I would hope so. I think particularly Alien, especially as Universal starts to become more adult and lure away, the strong adult fandom that theme parks have developed. Oh, Seattle Lander, that's so generous of you. Thank you. Thank you, Tame the Three Bears. Be it 20 memberships or one, it's always really appreciated. Thank you so much. But yeah, I think that again, particularly as they have to compete with Epic Universe, although apparently the ticket launch yesterday was a mess. I think that they should lean into these Fox IP. That's right, Just Blaze Disney. Alien was in the Great Movie Ride, and I miss that to this day. It was a wonderful sequence, and one of the things that made me like Alien Romulus as well is that it reminded me of the ride. George says, I think there's something interesting in connecting the new human xenomorph with the original creators in the terms of the lore. Yeah, that could be interesting. I love that that was a practical effect, by the way, with a real-life human who's actually that tall. That was incredible to learn. I think, I don't know about the architects. I never really understood what they were doing there. But just bring in David, bring in Amanda Ripley. I mean, this thing's starting to write itself. Fran, of course, guested on our Star Wars BTT Movie Club episode. And Fran was also just incredibly generous as well. That's over 70 new members were gifted today. I'm so glad. Welcome to the conversation, everybody. You will be your membership lasts for a month. And by the way, if you would like to get a gifted membership, if you want to qualify to receive one, you have to turn on accepting gifts. Just Google how to do that. I'm not quite sure. But then also, the more you interact with the channel, being a member in the past, subscribing, commenting, liking, YouTube knows that you like this channel and will therefore be more likely to give you a gifted membership. Seattle Law Nerd says, why not create an Apes Aliens movie? I think people maybe would watch that. Oh, thank you, Mr. Andrews. Yes, please like the stream. But I don't know. I don't know, I think they're trying to be a little more highbrow with this. All right. That's right, Travis. I just think we all want David back again. And I really thought Fede Alvarez did a great job. A number of people said that they thought Alien Romulus was too reverential to the previous films, but I didn't think so. I just liked it. I felt it was great to be back into the main films. The Night Owl, yes, we all felt that David was basically Brainiac. I couldn't agree more. I remember, particularly when Covenant came out, I was like, it's Brainiac! But, they still won't give us Brainiac in the movies. Again, everybody told James Gunn what they wanted. They were like, I would like to see Brainiac. And he just didn't do it, which is like, it was so silly. It's like, hey, one second, Gian. But, it was like, when Mushu says in Mulan, he's right in front of you. But maybe James Gunn, in the spirit of that analogy, is aiming at something perhaps even better. Bison Feces, what a name. Thank you very much as well. Apes versus Aliens sounds insane. Yeah, I guess it would be funny, but maybe that should be like a comedy sketch or something on Family Guy rather than an actual full movie. I love the Mulan quote there, Maruna. The Mulan quotes are appreciated. That's a great movie. Okay. Thanks, Big League Chew. As I said, I was at the hair salon all day yesterday, and so I'm glad you guys think that, again, it was time well spent. I was surprised how long I was there. I was like, I'm still here. Let's see here. Carl says they just did an Avengers versus Alien crossover comic. That's basically the Brood in X-Men. And Blair Wraith says, I just hope the characters in the next movie aren't as dumb as the characters in Covenant. They were pretty stupid in Covenant. They were like, let's touch everything. Boop, 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 boop. Should we wear our masks on an alien planet? Nah. I remember we were making fun of them when the trailer came out. We were all like, these people are stupid. All right, let's go on to the next story of the day indeed. All right, story number 2. Boop. Oh, sorry, Stephen Knight. I covered him up just as he's covering himself up. All right, the Star Wars movies. I agree. One of you tweeted, and I forgot to grab the tweet, that if Kathleen Kennedy can't get these new movies off the ground, I think she's probably headed out anyway. I do not think that she will renew. I would be really surprised if she renewed her contract yet again. I think they're going to let her gracefully retire or gracefully go back to producing movies, probably with her husband. Kennedy Marshall is a long-standing production company, mostly do a lot of Spielberg movies. But yeah, so I think that that's what's going to happen. She'll fail upward, and she did deliver a number of billion-dollar movies. So that's, I think, what's kept her alive for so long. But and I think it was very telling that she was very little at D23 this year. She only showed up to give Harrison Ford his, Disney Legends statue or award. At all the presentations, she did not show up. Dave Filoni took over. I think because I think she felt she'd be booed, and she probably would have been. And I got to tell you, I think this is not going well already. So they have a couple of upcoming Star Wars movies that were announced at the last Star Wars celebration, which, like D23, is every other year. So the next one is in Japan next year. So she announced several new movies. All right. James Mangold is making an early Jedi movie. An early Jedi movie. Let's see what else. Then Dave Filoni is making some kind of movie based off of his world. Jon Favreau is doing The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is apparently finished filming and will make its release date. And then Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is, of course, doing this Rey movie. She's doing this Rey film, which is supposed to be coming together, but has hit a snag today. But I do agree, I think that The Mandalorian Grogu, I hope people see it in theaters. I hope it seems cinematic, because, the show looks pretty good as it is, but the show has done a lot, I think, to hurt its fandom. I think that the viewership has dropped each season, and I think the last one had a rough time. I mean, I enjoyed lots of parts of it. But, I don't, the question is, will people feel they should see it in theaters or, I think a lot of it will depend on the reviews and the trailers and, the Easter eggs, obviously. I think that stuff will be important. But, James Mangold says his movie's, chugging along. And of course, she was supposed to do that movie with Patty Jenkins about, Rogue Squadron based on the video game. But that, Patty Jenkins swears it's still happening, but we're all like, sure, Patty. Poor Patty. It's not happening. All right. I think Sigourney Weaver is in The Mandalorian and Grogu. So these are the movies that they have coming up. But, the thing that's in the news today is the Rey movie. All right? Hey, Taylor. Welcome back. So here's my biggest concern about the Rey movie. All right? That it's going to turn into the Acolyte 2.0. I'm very worried about this. I would hope that the people at Disney, that the powers that be, really paid attention to what happened with the Acolyte. Because ended up being such a smack in the face that I really hope it woke up the people who are in charge here so that never happens again. Because it hurt the brand, it hurt the characters, it hurt the talent that was involved. It was unfortunate because part of it was so good. I really enjoyed through episode 5. I thought it was headed somewhere really exciting. And then it just was awful, and it was just so bad. That was, I think, one of the worst things about it. That at the end of the day, it couldn't stand on its own. And so you were like, oh no, it is horrible. All right, so I'm worried that the Rey movie, because it had a hard enough time when Rey was in the films, that it would just be like the Acolyte, the film version. All right, so it was just announced that Stephen Knight, this guy right here, dropped out as... let's talk about the other thing. I forgot to talk about this. All right, so why do I think that might be a problem at the Acolyte levels? Not only because Rey has had a lot of difficulties with the fandom as a character already, but this director, this woman here, Obaid-Chinoy, had an awful quote, and I even screen grabbed it for you, okay? So she did an interview with the Women in the World Foundation, and I gotta say, they set her up. They kind of didn't tee her up very well, and I wish that the Star Wars publicity department had been like, what are you doing to me, man? Let me see those questions before you ask them. So they said, what is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate the patriarchy? It's like, don't bring up the patriarchy, man. You're just going to cause problems for yourself. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's, it's like Voldemort. Don't actually say its name, because then you give it power. So that power structure, and is that a part of the calculation of your art as well? And what's been the reaction to that? Well, I don't know if she didn't have any media training or if she didn't pay attention to it. Although maybe she got it from Kathleen Kennedy, who, of course, infamously said she didn't care about the original fandom, and she's been haunted by that ever since. That was just a horrible thing for her to have said. But Chinoy, as you can see, replied, Oh, absolutely. She likes to make men uncomfortable. She enjoys making men uncomfortable. No matter what her intentions are, it would be almost impossible to overcome this statement. I feel this statement was in many ways a fireable offense. Because no matter how good the movie is, you've just given too much ammunition to the hate channels. It's like, I don't know how, unless she just really apologizes for it. And it's hard, I don't want her to have to feel she has to apologize, but I don't understand, there's this part of, a lot of people feel this was done to us, so we want to do it to the other group and see how they like it. That doesn't work, I think it really needs to be about positivity and moving forward, look how I kind of I follow, and by the way, I follow the advice that I give myself. We just had a spirited discussion about whether or not Alien is a horror film. And while I strongly stand by my comments, I did put an olive branch out to those of you who do feel it's a horror film. And I said, well, I can see where you're coming from, and I understand this. And then everybody's like, hopefully you guys were like, okay, let's agree to disagree. So I think that there's certainly a way I don't understand why she doesn't just say, I hope that I can create a great female character that is beloved by all audiences, because that's what a 4-quadrant movie is supposed to do. A 4-quadrant movie, as we've already learned time and time again, especially based off of the fact that nobody showed up for the Marvels, cannot be, and nobody showed up for Furiosa, you cannot make a big blockbuster movie that is aimed solely at women, because they will not come. Unless it's, unless it's like something that's like, the Barbie movie, or, based on a very popular book, it has to be in that space. But the Star Wars franchise is squarely in the male fandom space. So I just don't understand why she said this. And I agree, Ben 10, Supergirl is also something that I'm concerned about as well. But yeah, I think that the Acolyte, anytime anybody in the future is like, this is what we want to do, and we're going to do it aggressively, I'd be like, hey, man, did you remember a little show called The Acolyte? Now, Fadga says she was joking. I don't see that in the context of the comment. Because then she would have immediately said, oh, of course that's not true. And also, I guess it's like tweeting. Sometimes the intonation doesn't come across when it's just written down. But as soon as she saw this start to take root because this was covered by the toxic channels, she should have immediately corrected and been like, oh, I was just joking. Of course I don't want to make men uncomfortable. I'm excited for them to see the story that we want to tell. The movie next, that's a great point. Ahsoka, very strong female representation. Still gets some flack for it, but very male-centric as well. So I really don't I think this quote really puts it in potential Acolyte territory, which worries me. So Stephen Knight quit. I'm glad he quit. I don't think he's that strong of a writer. I honestly would have had the Rey movie directed by a man, and I would have had a woman direct another story, to be honest with you. Just because I think that let's talk about Rey. So yeah, Stephen Knight quit. I'm glad he quit. I think he should quit. I think he's a bad choice for it. I'll be curious to see who they get. But this is going to delay the movie. This is going to significantly delay the Rey film. But that's fine. Take your time. Get it right. Robin Zilla says, I wish these creators would stop patting themselves on the back for trying to be... I want them to be... My thesis statement is that what's on screen should reflect who's in the audience. So I feel very strongly about franchises reflecting the fandom, and fandoms are diverse. There are even women in these fandoms. So I do want to see female characters. But again, the driving force has to be to tell good stories with good characters, and everything else comes after that. It's just what Bob Iger said, story first, message second, and that includes representation. But message, you have to have message, and you have to have representation. You have to have those things. But the story comes first. The characters come first. They always come first. And I think hiring also authentic voices that understand that is also crucial. Greta Gerwig gets it. Ryan Coogler gets it. It's all about hiring the right talent. And a lot of times they don't hire the right talent. A lot of times, that's an interesting point. Side note, a lot of times they hire talent that's agenda-driven instead of story-driven. The talent, and I think that unfortunately, Obaid Chinoy made that clear, that she's agenda-driven. You don't want an agenda-driven talent. They interview talent. When they have, even behind the camera talent, they say, come in and pitch yourself as the director or writer for this project. And you have to say, what is your goal when making this film? And the answer should be to delight the Star Wars fandom and hopefully bring in some new fans. That is the only answer that is correct. If your answer is, I want to change Star Wars and I want to make Star Wars this and I want to, prove that Star Wars can be that, that's wrong. You should not hire that person. Okay. But I want to make it clear. Diversity is important, and so is message. By the way, Tenerife says Rey needs a good, strong male lead co-star. Couldn't agree more. I'd love it if it was John Boyega, to explore what happened there, and because also, Disney really do not do right by him. But I do think that, Rey's definitely the lead, but we've seen historically that female-led major blockbusters do well when there is a strong male character as well. I think that helped the first Captain Marvel movie because it had, Samuel L. Jackson was a big part of that film, and also Ben Mendelsohn and Jude Law. That was important. Barbie got a lot of help from the Kens. I think male casting is important. I wouldn't look at it as a negative. It's not, that's right. Just Blaze Disney. Wonder Woman is an amazing example with Chris Pine. My dad loved the Wonder Woman movie. I mean, he liked Wonder Woman, but he was like, this Steve Trevor guy's fantastic. You need that. And you shouldn't look at it as a negative. You should look at it as a way to make sure that your movie succeeds. Josh loves movies. It's curious that you bring up Wicked, which does have male characters in it, and we'll see how that works. But that's an interesting, we'll see how that works out. That's interesting. That's right, Terminator, Alien. The Alien movies also have strong female and male characters. I think that this is really important. And Hunger Games, that's right, Roman. Also, it's a balancing act because, again, you want to appeal to a large group of people. All right. So I want to talk about Rey. I would make this movie. I feel very bad about Rey. How things went with that character. Daisy Ridley was chased off of social media. Please watch Young Woman in the Sea. Young Woman in the Sea is a Disney movie about a real-life swimmer, Olympic swimmer, an amazing athlete. It's a movie on Disney Plus. You can watch it right now. And I thought that if you're not sold on Daisy Ridley as an actress, you will be once you watch that movie. But Rey, I like the idea of a female Jedi. I liked the briefness that we saw of Carrie-Anne Moss in The Acolyte. And I have to tell you, I thought that Amanda Stenberg was wonderful. I feel very bad. I thought she was great. And the fact that Amanda Stenberg will not continue is frustrating to me. I like Ahsoka. I want to see more female Jedi. I want to see more female Sith. I want to see more women wielding lightsabers. That's very important to me. And I see a lot of female fans who really, especially young girls, who really have been drawn to Rey. Now, I don't know sometimes if that's like promotional. I don't know how true that is. But I do think that she has spoken to some women, of all ages, which is really nice. Yeah, that's right. Ventress, classic bunny librarian. How about Omega on The Bad Batch? Omega is an incredible female character, and she's older now. Bring in adult Omega. I think they intentionally aged her up, so maybe she can show up in the next season of Ahsoka. That would make me so happy. If Omega came in as live action, I think the actress who voices her could do it, just dye her hair blonde or put a wig on her. I would make me that happy. I would just geek out hardcore. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm in a glass case of emotion. I can't stand it. It would make me so happy. All right, so anyway. Such a great character. All right, but yeah, I would like to see Rey done right. I mean, she had to share her movies with the original Star Wars characters, Han, Luke, and Leia. and it just didn't work out for her. So I would like things to go well for Rey. I would like things to go well for Daisy Ridley. I think it's ridiculous that she's related to Palpatine. I think it's ridiculous she just decided to call herself Skywalker. These things are all dumb. I hope that this movie can maybe change some of those things. It's supposed to take place about 15 years after the movies that she was originally in. I would love to see her as a powerful Jedi who is getting the Jedi back on track. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. You know, when the Acolytes started out and people were saying, they're ruining the Jedi, I was like, you guys are a bunch of crybabies. But then by the end of the Acolyte, I was like, you know what? I think that's a fair criticism. I think they did hurt the Jedi. And in fact, now when I see a Jedi, instead of my being like, oh, a Jedi, I'm like, are you a good Jedi or a bad Jedi? Are you a competent Jedi or are you an incompetent Jedi? And that's really bad. I mean, I don't know. To some degree, I guess that's, I guess it's supposed to mirror law enforcement. You know, the conversations we have in real life about law enforcement, that you shouldn't assume that a force for good is going to deliver on that promise. But I think it's also hurtful to erode trust in those organizations because for the most part, they do help you. I think that, you should not feel, you should always be nervous when you have to deal with those entities because, someone once told me when the police show up, that means that shit just got real. And you should take that very seriously. I think sometimes people view the police force as a service, a government service, and so they're like, you're a consumer? That is not true. I think when the police show up, you really need to think, in my opinion, obviously, in my limited interactions with the police, obviously I can't speak to some things that have happened, but I think you really need to act as if suddenly you're in like a very dangerous situation because you just don't know and I think that's how police enter every situation because of their situation. I think some of the things that the police have done are horrific, and I'm glad to see that they are being held accountable for that. That's one of the points somebody made about AI. Hey, Zach Abbey, just on a side note, someone made a really great point about AI robots. They said that law enforcement could use AI robots and program them, and they could act irresponsibly and in some cases, in ways that are horrific, but yet who would then be held accountable? Because it's just a robot. Would you hold the person who programmed it accountable? I think that is very, very worrisome. Someone brought that point up and I thought that was excellent. At least now you can be like, you're going to go to jail. And even that doesn't seem to be enough of a deterrent for some people. But I think that while there's definitely law enforcement that's corrupt, I think that there's some law enforcement that obviously is good. And you need them. They serve a purpose that's unfortunately needed. So, but the fact, I do think that real harm has been done to the Jedi. I think that real harm has been done to the organization. I do think also that it reflects the world that we live in. Ace is saying the Jedi are flawed. I think people these days are very nervous about law enforcement, and I think they're very nervous about religious organizations. And I have to say, sadly, rightfully so. And since the Jedi is both a religious organization that delivers justice, supposedly. Oh, thanks, Wanda's attorney. This is a tough conversation. Whew, I'm sweating it out. I'm trying to keep my cool. But yeah, I think that, and Ace Spence, you're saying this is why The Acolyte is so compelling. I agree. This is what I was enjoying about The Acolyte. But then I thought they went too far. I think that they went too far with it. And I think that they added incompetence to the mix as well, which also was really bad. It's one thing to wonder whether or not a system is corrupt, but once you say it's corrupt and incompetent, that's really damaging. So yeah, I thought that The Acolyte, I thought this was an interesting conversation. I thought it was an interesting direction that they were going in. And that's the other thing. I think that The Acolyte was originally just proposing that it was only four Jedi had gone off the path. Then you were like, yes, this happens. Units can become corrupt. I thought that was really interesting. But then it started to spread that the whole Jedi organization was corrupt because it spread to the superiors, to Saul's superiors. So you were like, oh my God, it's the whole organization. I was interested in The Acolyte when they were only focusing on 4 acolyte who had gone the wrong way. That to me was really interesting. Ray's Week says the system is corrupted. Well, I'm going to give you some advice that you can choose to follow or not. This is advice that I follow, and I have found it helpful. You should never be naive, and you should always believe that you could potentially be dealing with someone who is corrupted or incompetent. But I think that if you're dismissive of a system that is operational, there is nothing, and you have to interact with it, it does not benefit you to just totally dismiss it. I think that because you can't. I would say that's the same for a work organization. I would say that's the same for a political organization. I would say that's the same for a societal organization. I see this a lot. People often act as if they're living in the world they wish they did. You should act, thank you, Liam, okay? You should act as if you're in the world that you actually are. That's not to say you can't instigate change. You could. But you have, just think about how you're operating in the moment. I hope that's helpful. All right, so boy, did we go on a tangent on that one. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this story? I see they announced the Spider-Man date for July 4th, 2026. So that's nuts. If that's really true, I don't know how they're doing the Nolan movie the same month. Yeah. Oh, July 24th. That's even dumber. Doesn't the Christopher Nolan movie come out the week before? Hold on. Yeah, it does. It's a week apart. That's so stupid. All right, whatever. All right. Thanks, Rampage. Well, hey, welcome back. Oh, well, thank you for joining, Stedgemon, and welcome back, Pater. Let's see here. Taryn says it's standard for male and female leads to be in a relationship. How would John Wick work if Disney avoids... Oh, how would John Boyega work? Well, no, it's not necessarily for male and female leads to be in a relationship. That's not... you guys said you don't think Andy and Rain are in a relationship in Alien Romulus, right? I don't think that... I think there was a flirtation between those two specific characters, and I actually am rooting for them, I think that I don't really see how you could have them in a movie and not explore that, because I think that's definitely that tension's definitely there. I don't know if Ray feels the same way as Finn, but I think that he certainly is interested in her. But how could you say that Disney does that when they just did The Little Mermaid, which was I guess you're saying black men and white women. See here. That's right, Ben 10. That's also taking advantage. That's a good point. That's taking advantage of the Comic-Con date. We've learned. Everybody wants that date now. Alexander Wilson says, Grace, under Kennedy for me, Lucasfilm has only made 2 good films, Rogue One and Andor, both by Tony Gilroy. It seems like they just can't get good writers. Where is their Jack Schaefer? Well, they worked too hard to be repetitive of the first films, which I think was a mistake. I love that we've been talking so much about the benefit of the Comic-Con date, and sure enough, Hollywood is working on that, and they've taken it for Star Wars. But I think they have to move that Nolan movie now. I don't understand how they would keep the Nolan movie there, where it is. All right, I got to get going. I'm running low on time. That's right, Fantastic Four is taking it in 2025. All right, so we have one more story. This will be a quick one, and then I'll do a short Q&A. Leo says, I think they're hoping for a Tom Holland Barbenheimer situation. I don't think that works the same way, to be honest with you. I think that having the same actor in both movies is too much. You know, those were different casts. All right. Story number 2. Boom, baby. All right. So we just recently talked about the Prince Charming movie. It's going to be directed by Paul King, who did the Wonka film, and as well as the 2 Paddington movies. Not just the first 2, not the new one that's coming out. And he's been signed to do the live-action Prince Charming movie. And it was announced earlier this week that Chris Hemsworth is in the lead for negotiate to have the lead role. He has not accepted it yet, but he is in the lead talks to take it. Now, on the one hand, I kind of like this casting. Apparently, a lot of people feel he's too old for the role. I like him for it, but some of you don't. So anyway, I think it's a good idea. Yes, all right, he was in Snow White, but I think he's very funny, and I think he could be an interesting choice for it. I think it depends which Prince Charming is he playing, right? Is he playing one of these? Is he playing a generic Prince Charming? Is he playing the lead Prince Charming? As I've said before, I really feel that the only way for this to truly work is to do a Barbie approach with the Kens. He doesn't have any Furiosa Capital Wanda's attorney. I'm shocked that he got this. We'll talk about his box office in a minute, because that's the only thing that gives me pause. I think he's wonderful. I agree that he was great in Transformers, Raiswig. I agree with that as well. But I do think it's interesting to see his relationship with Disney developing. He's obviously very strong for them as Thor, or at least he has been in some cases. But I think this would really benefit his relationship with Disney. I like it. I don't know. I think he's good casting until I look at his box office. So let's take a look at that together. When I look at his box office, hold on, I get nervous. All right, so here's his box office. Okay? It's not great. So he really discovered he was a comedian with Ghostbusters, but of course that tanked. Thor Ragnarok was a big breakout movie for him. Thank you, 80s model. Very funny. Made $850. Put Thor back on, or finally put Thor on track. And I think that he was it was good. Then obviously he struggled outside of the Avengers movie. Look at Men in Black. And I thought that was okay. Flop. Even Thor Love and Thunder faltered a little bit, which he's admitted. Although he's so good in the Extraction movies as well. Hard recommend. Thank you again, 80s model. Hard recommend the Extraction movies on Netflix. And I have to say, while Furiosa, as you can see, was just a total bomb. Wow, that's a bomb. He was great in it, I thought. I thought he did a really phenomenal job. But these box office numbers are weak. As you can see, he is not somebody who drives a lot of engagement from audiences. Little Baby Pizza says maybe the whole point is midlife Prince Charming, midlife crisis Prince Charming. I think that could be funny, and I think I trust Paul King a lot. I mean, I think Chris Hemsworth has the self-effacing quality that I think you would want for a role like this. I like it quite a bit, and I think he's a good actor. I think he's funny. I think he's committed to the comedy. I think he'd be great. You guys are so against it, though. I guess maybe it would make me nervous. Sometimes I suspect they float out these casting rumors because they... sometimes I think they float out these casting rumors because they want to see how audiences feel. Sorry, I was getting a phone call and I got distracted. All right, so that's a short story. I think it's a good idea as a fan, but from a business perspective, I'm nervous about it. And I'm nervous about the approach for the film. I wouldn't have just one Prince Charming. Manpreet says Glenn Powell. I don't know. I don't think Glenn Powell is really proven yet, actually. Oh, Peng, I'm glad you agree with my speculation that it should be like the Ken movie. And that's right, Alberto. Thor 4, as it haunts you, haunts a lot of people. It's going to be hard for Chris Hemsworth to overcome that. Let's see here. Mika says, is this before Wonka 2? I'm not sure. Wonka 2 is getting ready to go, but Timothy Chalamet, I think, has to do Dune 3 first, although that's a little delayed. We'll see how the order shakes out. All right, so let's do a quick Q&A, because again, I have to get going. I'm way behind on my schedule. All right, let's do like a quick few minutes. Any questions or comments that you just would like me to get to? Classic Bunny Librarian, that's a great point. Where is the Hercules movie? Stuck in development hell. Wanda's attorney says, what comics have you been reading lately? I did not like the new Wonder Woman. You would appreciate this, Wanda's attorney. I feel the new Wonder Woman is a Scarlet Witch ripoff, which makes me angry. I mean, the artwork on it is phenomenal, but I'm like, this is Wanda Maximoff. What are you doing to me? I'm kind of annoyed about it. Although I'm like, where's Steve? Is he coming? I'll buy the next issue, but I'm annoyed about it. Thank you, Wanda's attorney. I'm glad you agree. Juan Gabriel says Lady Raven or Sky Riley. Is Lady Raven from Trap? Sky Riley all the way from Smile 2. Hey, Josh. Justin, CEO of Cinema. If you send a super chat earlier, I can't necessarily get to it because YouTube erases them. So you got to be careful when you send them. Oh, 80s model. Oh, that's a good idea. I will try and work on that. Let's see here. Okay, thank you for the suggestion. Oh, John Camara, Honora was good. I haven't seen Conclave yet. I'm seeing Conclave this weekend. Dancing Dog 60. No, I gotta tell you, Kim Novak was an awful Hitchcock blonde. Awful. So no, I think she's a great Kim Novak. Beachy says, what's your favorite Agatha episode so far? I guess it would be the Wiccan backstory. Sarah, I was just talking about The Agency with Michael Fassbender. I thought the trailer was weak, so I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Oh, Batman. I didn't like Fall of House of Usher, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm telling you, watch Interview with the Vampire. Thank you, Dancing Dog 60. That's very generous of you. Thank you. I did enjoy this week's episode quite a bit, but I thought 6 was a little better. And that's right, of course, Agatha All Along is a great Halloween show. Lone Wolf Media, I did not listen to Lady Gaga's new single, I know. I didn't like her Bruno Mars song. I was so disappointed. I guess I'm scared to listen to it. Josh Bourne, you watched season 1 in one sitting? Oh, that's great. I'm glad we got you to start it, and I'm glad you liked it as much as many of us do. I see, I saw somebody else talk about Meg Flanagan doing Carrie. I do feel that it's true that I think with, violence in schools, maybe it's not a great thing, but I do feel they're probably thinking of Wednesday's success to some degree. Andre Calderon says, squeak, squeak, Grace. I was wondering who is in charge of trailers. Has the director anything to say? Wondering for a lot of movies with so many missing scenes well, I think the director, of course, it depends on how successful the director is. If you're just starting out, you don't have a lot to say. But I think the director has some input, but obviously publicity is important. And remember, the director is the most important, that they need to film those crucial scenes up front so they're ready to go for the trailer. And that was Andrew Stanton's horrible mistake that he made when filming John Carter of Mars, the John Carter movie, because he didn't have, and also he had a new PR person at the time who didn't tell him either, but he didn't have his stuff ready to go. Like they did the most famous example of that is they did the White House exploding for Independence Day right away. And that was therefore able to be in the teaser trailer, which was a big thing for helping the movie. Oh, Phil is also enjoying Interview with the Vampire. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are liking it, and I helped you find it. Thanks to everybody who helped me find it because you wanted me to help blow up its spot, and I'm glad that's working. All right. Nao Elson says, do you think Agatha and Penguin will rise on the Nielsen ratings? They should have come out. The Nielsen ratings should have come out yesterday. I was trying to find them. Oh, they have come out. I'll tell you right now. We'll talk about it in depth on Movie Math. Neither one of them is still on the overall. Agatha dropped on the overall to 10th place. God damn it. And Penguin is still not on the acquired. What a disaster that Agatha went down. All right, we'll talk about it on Sunday. What a disaster. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I had a lovely time talking with you as always. I will see you very soon. And of course, I'll see you definitely on Sunday where we will have stuff to discuss. All right, everybody, bye. Bye, 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 bye.